Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the North Atlantic to uncover the full story of a ship that has haunted our collective imagination for over a century. The RMS Titanic. Most of us know the basics from movies and documentaries, but the real story is far more complex, filled with secrets, forgotten heroes, and fatal mistakes that go beyond the iceberg. Let's rewind to 1912. The White Star Line launches the Titanic, a floating palace that was the pinnacle of modern engineering. It wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of an era's confidence and ambition. On its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York, it carried a cross-section of society. In first class, you had some of the world's wealthiest people, like John Jacob Astor and Benjamin Guggenheim, living in suites that rivaled the finest hotels. Down in third class, or steerage, hundreds of immigrants were packed in, dreaming of a new life in America. For them, the Titanic was a vessel of hope. Over 2,200 souls, each with their own story, were on board. The ship was famously advertised as unsinkable. This wasn't just a marketing slogan. It was a belief rooted in its advanced design. The Titanic had 16 watertight compartments, which could be sealed off in an emergency. The thinking was that even if a few of them flooded, the ship would stay afloat. But here lies the first of many hidden flaws. These watertight bulkheads didn't reach high enough. Imagine an ice cube tray. If you fill one section with water, it can spill over into the next. That's exactly what would happen on the Titanic. Another critical weakness was in the very things holding the ship together, the rivets. Investigations later revealed that the rivets used in the bow and stern were of a lower quality. When exposed to the freezing temperatures of the North Atlantic, they became brittle and were more likely to pop under pressure. The unsinkable ship was, in fact, vulnerable from the start. The voyage began smoothly, a grand affair of fine dining and social events. But as the Titanic steamed across the Atlantic, a hidden danger was smoldering deep within its hull. For days, a fire had been burning in one of its massive coal bunkers. The crew tried to control it, but the fire may have heated the steel hull to a critical point, weakening its structure right in the area where the iceberg would later strike. This fact is often overlooked, but it could have been a major contributing factor to the disaster. The ship was not only sailing towards an iceberg, but was also compromised from within. On the night of April 14, 1912, the air was freezing, and the sea was eerily calm, like a sheet of black glass. This lack of waves made it incredibly difficult for the lookouts in the crow's nest to spot icebergs, which would normally be revealed by water breaking at their base. To make matters worse, the lookouts' binoculars were reportedly locked away, and the key was left behind in Southampton. Throughout the day, the Titanic's radio operators received multiple iceberg warnings from other ships in the area. Some messages were passed to the bridge, but a crucial one never made it. The senior radio operator, Jack Phillips, was overwhelmed with sending personal messages for the wealthy first-class passengers. When a nearby ship, the Californian, sent a final urgent warning that they were stopped and surrounded by ice, a frustrated Phillips reportedly replied, "Shut up, I am busy." The Titanic continued to race ahead at nearly full speed, around 22 knots, trying to make a grand entrance into New York. At 11:40 p.m., lookout Frederick Fleet spotted it, a dark mass, dead ahead. "Iceberg, right ahead." He screamed into the telephone. First Officer William Murdoch, on the bridge, immediately ordered the ship hard a starboard, and the engines reversed. But it was too late. The ship was too big and moving too fast to turn in time. The damage stretched across 5 of the ship's watertight compartments. The ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, was on board. After a quick inspection, he delivered the grim verdict to Captain Smith. The Titanic was designed to float, with 4 compartments flooded, but not 5. He calculated it had, at most, 2 hours before it would sink. The unsinkable ship was doomed. Panic didn't set in immediately. Many passengers were asleep and barely felt the collision, but as the ship's bow began to dip, the crew started preparing the lifeboats. And here, the tragedy deepened. The Titanic was legally compliant with outdated safety regulations, meaning it only had enough lifeboats for about 1,178 people, roughly half of those on board. Chaos and confusion reigned on the boat deck. The crew was poorly trained for an evacuation, and many lifeboats were launched partially empty. The women and children first protocol was enforced, but it was applied inconsistently. On one side of the ship, officers interpreted it as women and children only, turning men away even when there was empty space. On the other side, men were allowed in if there were no women waiting. This heartbreaking disparity meant that your chances of survival could depend on which side of the deck you were on. Down in third class, the situation was far worse. Passengers were trapped in a maze of corridors, with gates locked to enforce class separation. Many didn't speak English and couldn't understand the crew's instructions. While some crew members tried to guide them to the boat decks, many were left to fend for themselves. This class divide became a death sentence. While over 60% of first-class passengers survived, less than 25% of those in third class did. It's a chilling reminder of the social inequalities of the time. As the ship's final moments approached, the deck tilted at a terrifying angle. Stories of heroism and sacrifice emerged. The ship's band, led by Wallace Hartley, famously played on to calm the passengers, their music echoing across the freezing water. Millionaires chose to go down with the ship, dressed in their finest clothes. At 2:20 a.m. on April 15, with a deafening roar, the immense stress on the hull caused the Titanic to break into between its third and fourth funnels. The stern rose vertically into the air before plunging into the depths, taking with it over 1,500 people. For those in the water, the ordeal was far from over. The temperature of the North Atlantic was near freezing. Hypothermia set in within minutes. The night was filled with the cries of hundreds of people, a sound that would haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives. Of the 20 lifeboats, only one returned to pick up more survivors from the water. They pulled only 6 people from the icy sea. The rest were gone. Hours later, the RMS Carpathia arrived, having raced through the same ice field at full speed after receiving the Titanic's distress call. They rescued the 706 survivors huddled in the lifeboats, but for over 1,500 people, help came too late. The world awoke to a headline it couldn't believe. The sinking of the Titanic sent shockwaves across the globe, shattering the era's faith in technology and progress. The aftermath led to sweeping changes in maritime safety. The first International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea was held in 1914, mandating that all ships carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board and that 24-hour radio watches be maintained. An international ice patrol was also established to monitor icebergs in the North Atlantic. The disaster exposed the deadly consequences of arrogance, class division, and a series of seemingly small human errors that compounded into a catastrophe of epic proportions. For decades, the Titanic lay undisturbed, a silent monument 12,500 feet beneath the ocean's surface. It wasn't until 1985 that oceanographer Robert Ballard and his team finally discovered the wreck. The 2 main sections of the ship lie about a third of a mile apart. surrounded by a debris field of personal belongings, shoes, porcelain dolls, unopened champagne bottles, each a poignant connection to a life lost. These expeditions continue to reveal new secrets. For example, recent studies of the wreck suggest the ship broke apart at a much lower angle than depicted in films, and that the coal bunker fire's impact may have been even more significant than previously thought. The story of the Titanic endures, not just as a historical event, but as a powerful human drama. It's a story of ambition and failure, of courage and cowardice, and of love and loss on an unimaginable scale. It serves as a timeless cautionary tale, reminding us that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, we are never immune to human error and the overwhelming power of nature. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. The Titanic's legacy is a complex one, and there's always more to learn. If you found this interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our future explorations. See you in the next video.